All right, in the last video, we created this endpoint called search to search for the movies that we want using this REST API, right? So in this video, let's talk about Redis and how we can improve our search queries using Redis. So just note this request took about 244 milliseconds. Now let's try to use Redis and see how much time it would take to actually read the queries using Redis. So first thing is, so there is this page called try.redis.io where you can go and then try out the Redis commands. Since this is a key value store, Redis is a key value store. It's an in-memory cache. So you can use, you can like get familiar with the Redis commands here. So for example, you could set a key. I'll say name to be my name, and I can get the value get name. Should be able to get whatever. So this is a key value store, right? So whatever key that we want, we could get the value associated with that particular key. Now the values can be really complex. It can be lists, it can be objects, or it can be anything. So in our case, what we'll do is we will store the entire movie data structure. So, so let's go to our Spring Boot application. Now let's try to enable caching in our Spring Boot application. So there are few steps that are required. First thing is, let's go to our application.properties file, and yeah. So before even I show this, one thing is, let's make sure that our Redis server is running. So I have installed Redis locally on my machine, and this runs on port 6379. So you can install Redis from this page here. You can download and then install Redis. So I've already downloaded and then installed locally. You can even have you can have it running on Docker containers also. Right now this is just running locally on my machine, not on any Docker container or anything. Um, okay, so that's the first step. Then we provide the um, properties of that Redis server that is hosted locally. Where is it running on localhost on this particular port, and the cache names. So I'm just giving the same name as my database. Okay. Now the next step is, let's go to our movies DB application. This is our entry point to our application, Spring Boot application, right? So in order to tell Spring Boot that this we are going to enable caching in our application, we'll provide an annotation called @enable caching. Okay, so this will tell Spring Boot that we are going to enable caching. Now the next step is, we'll go to movie service implementation, and here we'll have to provide certain configurations. So here what we'll tell is, we'll say what the cache config is, and we'll provide the database name. So the cache names is equal to whatever name that we provided in the application.properties file. Okay, I actually forgot to mention one thing. So if you go to our pom.xml, so initially, if you remember in the first video, we added this dependency called Spring Boot Starter Data Redis. So this will provide us the necessary APIs to talk to our Redis server through our Spring Boot application. Okay. Yeah, let me go back to the movie service implementation. Now, so we provided this cache on config. Now we have to select an endpoint or an API call where we want to enable this particular caching. So whenever the user wants to search for a particular movie, right? So if I go to a movie controller, so this is a search endpoint, and this endpoint is going to call this method in our movie service, find movies, and this is the interface. What I want is the implementation, and this is the find movies method that is going to be called when our users want to search for the movie uh, using our API, REST API, right? So, so here we have to provide this particular config called @cacheable. So we are telling that we are going to cache any request that is going to hit this particular method, and we are going to tell what is the key. Our key is going to be, and I'm using a Spring expression here, is going to be our search string. Whatever search string that the user provides, I'm going to use that as my key for my Redis store, and the value is going to be whatever value that I get from my database. So I'm going to show you how this actually works using Redis CLI Monitor. So what we'll do is we have enabled caching, we have given the cache config, and we have provided this configuration also. Now let me run the application. All right, we have the Spring Boot application running. Now let me do one thing. Let me do a Redis CLI monitor. So this will monitor the requests that are going to this Redis server, either the GET or the PUT requests. So let me make this call again to this particular search endpoint. I'm going to search for the same movie. My Redis cache doesn't have any data yet. So let's see what happens. So I'll send this request. Right, I get the movie. Let's note the time. It took about 1 second, 975 milliseconds, right? So what happened is, if I go to the CLI monitor, Redis CLI monitor, initially we tried to do a get on the Redis cache. We were not able to get the movie. So the request went and hit the database, our MongoDB database. We got the data from MongoDB, and then we set this particular movie in our Redis cache. Now, what happens is, let's search for the same movie again. So what I'm going to do is, now let's see. Now let's send this request. Now it took only 18 milliseconds. The reason is this request hit our Redis cache, and since the Redis cache already has the data for this particular string, we were able to fetch that data and then return it back to the user. So this is all about Redis that I had to show. But if you have uh, any comments or anything, if you want me to add anything more, please let me know. Add comments. In the next video, let's look at connecting our UI, our Angular application, with the Spring Boot application. We haven't yet written the Angular application, right? So let's write the Angular microservice and connect it to our Spring Boot application, and then see how these two microservices interact with each other. Thank you.